Hello, beautiful soul. My name is Yulia, and I'm the voice of the podcast Love to Heal. This podcast outlines my journey from atheism to Judaism, exploring spirituality from diverse perspectives. It is my hope that my journey will inspire others to embark on their own adventure of self-discovery and spiritual growth. Hello, my dear listeners, and welcome to Season 7. It is the start of a new year, 2026. I'm excited to be behind the microphone once again, sharing with you my stories of spiritual growth, my coming back to Judaism, all the excitement that has been going on. There's always something to talk about. So many lessons learned and so many yet to learn. I took a little break so that I could finish my memoir, and I'm happy to say that I did finish it. I'm editing it right now, and I hope to publish it in the next few months. So definitely be on the lookout for that, for those news. And today, I will start with one of the most recent experiences in my life, which was a family vacation that we took. And of course, we had to incorporate some Judaism into it. And that is exactly what I want to share with you. So, for winter break this year, my family decided to go somewhere warm, namely Mexico. It's an easy flight for us, 3 hours direct to Cancun. And now, if you've been listening to previous episodes, now every time that we travel, we make sure to include in our itinerary at least one visit to a synagogue, but preferably also to attend a service or a celebration, perhaps Shabbat or a different holiday. And also, we really like the idea of visiting Chabads in different parts of the world. The last one we went to was in Copenhagen, and we really enjoyed ourselves. So we made sure to include a Chabad visit in our itinerary this time. So when we booked our Cozumel vacation, we decided instead of going to Cancun this time, we decided to go to Cozumel, which is an island off Mexico, very close by from Playa del Carmen. It's only about 25-30 minutes on a ferry to reach this island. And so one of the first things I did when we booked our vacation, I went to see if there was a nearby Chabad center. I figured, we can take the ferry back to Cancun if need be, no big deal, or travel even further. We were open to it. But to our surprise, there was a Chabad center on the island of Cozumel, which is amazing because you would think, okay, Cancun, big tourist city, of course there will be a Chabad center, but on a little island off the coast of Mexico? No way. Well, there is a Chabad, and it was just a short taxi drive from our resort to the downtown area of Cozumel, so it was perfect. Now, since I knew we were going to be there over Shabbat, I went on the website of this specific Chabad, and I reserved spots for dinner and prayer services for my family. We were traveling in a big group with other friends and kids, but the ones that attended this Shabbat were just the 5 family members, my husband, me, our 3 kids, and also our oldest daughter. She invited her 2 friends, which was fine. We're always welcoming guests with us. The cost of the dinner was very reasonable. It was $45 for adults and $25 for children. And the day of our visit to this Chabad, I told my husband I wanted to check out Chabad before Shabbat began, before the sun down, because one, I wanted to make sure we knew exactly where it was located, how to find it, and everything, so that we wouldn't be in a rush trying to find this Chabad center in a totally unfamiliar city and, God forbid, be running late to the dinner or the prayer services. Oftentimes, I've noticed that Chabads are somewhat hidden, almost like speakeasies, if you will. A lot of times, you don't know that they are inside a certain building. Sometimes they're in a basement of a building. It's just, if you're new to this place, it's good to check it out ahead of time. And the second reason was also I wanted to get to Chabad before sunset because I wanted to take pictures and videos of the space for my social media channels. And if you haven't checked that out yet, please do. Instagram or TikTok, Love to Heal Podcast. You will see some pictures and videos there from our visit to this Chabad. Since we were staying in an all-inclusive resort on the beach and we wanted to see the downtown, the city anyway, we decided to rent a car, which we figured would be a little cheaper than taking taxis each time, especially since we were 7 in the group, and it's always tough to find large taxis, or we would have to pay for 2. So we rented a car, and we got to downtown Cozumel around 4 p.m., and immediately we went to search for Chabad. And boy, am I glad we did, because it was not easy to find it, just as I had suspected. Even with Google Maps in our hand, we still had to ask several locals how to get there. Chabad of Cozumel is actually located inside a kosher restaurant called Alma, which in Spanish means soul, S-O-U-L. Walking by the 2-story plaza where the restaurant was supposedly located, we did see a cafe. We're pretty sure it was a cafe. I think I remember even reading about it on Chabad's website, that this was one of the places you could go get coffee. And on the wall of this cafe was written kosher in big letters. So I knew we were close, but since this cafe was already closed for the evening, there was nobody to ask about Chabad. So I ended up asking a local that was standing outside of a store across from this cafe, and thankfully he was familiar with the restaurant Alma. He explained that we needed to go to the 2nd floor of this large plaza, and he pointed in the direction of the stairs. Now, this plaza is not your typical American shopping plaza. It's actually a historical square around which this shopping center was built. And they preserved the Spanish colonial feel of it with a gorgeous open-air courtyard and a well, the one used to gather water. So that was really beautiful and really nice to explore. And then on the 1st floor of this open-air plaza are dozens of tiny souvenir shops boasting Mexican handiwork, while on the 2nd floor are offices and restaurants. Again, if you have Instagram or TikTok, there's a video of us actually walking through this square looking for Chabad. Once we entered the courtyard, we could see tons of multicolored paper banners hanging all around. Keep in mind, we were there throughout Christmas and almost New Year's. So while we were celebrating Hanukkah, everybody, the world around us was celebrating Christmas. So all the town squares, all the downtown area was beautifully decorated with lights and of course, this Mexican colorful paper banners. They're called papel picado in Spanish, which means punched paper. It's a traditional folk art where artisans use chisels to cut elaborate designs. They can be flowers, birds, skeletons, or religious figures. And they do this. They cut out these stacks of tissue paper and they create out of them festive decorations that they hang throughout the cities. So through the banners, though, peeked a huge bronze menorah on the 2nd floor of the plaza, which of course served as a clue that we were on the right track to finding Chabad. We finally located the stairs too, which, by the way, were painted to resemble a rainbow. Each step was embellished with inspirational words about love, faith, and kindness, which I think is more of a Christian take, but I thought it fit Chabad's philosophy just as well. When we reached the 2nd floor, across the courtyard, I spotted a huge banner with a photo of the Rabbi. And at this point, it couldn't be more obvious that we were almost there. We continued to walk the balcony, and then we spotted a sort of security checkpoint, if you will. It was just a little metal podium with a sign on it that said security in English, and I think also in Hebrew. But to our surprise, after having been searched and asked to present our passports at the entrance to most synagogues in Europe and also in Latin America, here no one was there to ask or check anything. We simply approached these gorgeous double doors with colorful glass and, of course, a mezuzah on the doorpost, and we just walked right in. And then once inside, we saw a fairly small open space. On one side, there were some tables and chairs. We assumed that this was the restaurant. And then in the middle of the space, there was a pool table, a ping pong table, and some couches just kind of sitting against one of the walls. And then on the other side of this room, there was a space for prayer with a little small Torah ark. So it was all very compact. There was really nobody there at this time except for one man who was eating. And after he was done chewing his food, he got up and asked us if we were there for the restaurant. He was Israeli, but thankfully he spoke some English. We told him that we were there for Shabbat dinner. So he said to please wait one moment, and he went out on the back balcony and called in Hebrew to another young man. So then this young Israeli came out with a big smile. He greeted us, welcomed us to Chabad. He was wearing a kippah and the four-cornered undershirt with the tzitzit, the fringes, and black pants. I asked him if he was the rabbi, and he replied that no, that the rabbi would be there later for evening services. He explained in his broken English that we should come back closer to 6 p.m. for services and that dinner would follow, but it wouldn't start until around 8 p.m. We asked how many people they expected that night. We were just curious, and the man said around 100 people, which was surprising because the space really was quite tight. But he proceeded to say that on holidays like Pesach, they had close to 600 people somehow fitting in this Chabad, which just seemed impossible. But then again, anything is possible in Chabad, I've already found out. And actually later when I checked out their website, and you can just Google it, I understood that this Chabad in Cozumel was a very popular destination for many tourists, and that they hosted 150,000 guests in 1 year. Amazing, right? So after talking to this man, we had a couple of hours to walk around the city and then come back later at 6, which is what we did. And when we got back, the space was completely revamped. It was unrecognizable. There were now long rows of tables, 3 rows, if I remember correctly. They were covered with velvet tablecloths of this beautiful soft blue color. And the tables were set up for dinner with just striking plates, silverware, and glasses. And the prayer service was already in progress when we came in. So we saw many men already seated in the men's section, most of them dressed in Orthodox attire, and then a few women behind the separation or the partition, which were also dressed very nicely, and they were praying as well. We could now tell clearly who the rabbi was. He was leading the service. He was a handsome, very charismatic Israeli who spoke mostly in Hebrew, but also just a little bit of English when needed. Some women were busy with their young children. There were a lot of children, actually, while others just sat around the tables and chatted if they, for some reason, didn't want to participate in the prayer service. Some people were obvious tourists, while others seemed to be perhaps Cozumel residents. From what I gathered, as of 2025, there are only a handful of Jewish families actually residing in Cozumel. The rest are visitors. Most guests, like I said, were dressed modestly, especially for the service, but as the evening progressed, there were quite a few people dressed not conservatively at all. Some women were wearing pants, which is fine, but then a few men started coming in with families that were dressed in shorts, wife beaters, not joking, and flip-flops. But again, Chabad is like that, right? Everybody's welcome. You're on an island in Cozumel in Mexico. I guess it's just not a big deal. You can come to service dressed any way you want. All men did wear kippahs, though, and they did look like they knew what they were doing, like it wasn't their first time. So it was just interesting to see the difference between the Orthodox and then I'm not sure what the others were, if they were Reform or what, but they were dressed very differently, to say the least. Halfway through the service, the men began to sing and dance. I want to say as if it were someone's wedding. I don't know how else to describe it, but wow, what a riot. I had never seen anything like that at a Friday night service. Most men were not only singing, they were banging on tables and chairs to create a sort of party atmosphere. At one point, we even saw the men do a conga line. It was a sight to see. It was so much fun. While the women could not participate in the dancing and the singing with the men, we could have, I suppose, made our own dance circle if we wanted to, but I think most women were too shy, maybe, so we just sat around and watched the men pour their hearts out through song and dance. My husband was also taken aback a little bit by the service because we're just simply not used to that. And later on, when we talked to our rabbi about the difference in services, they said, well, most likely these were Sephardic Jews, which their culture differs quite a bit from the Ashkenazi Jews that we are and that our rabbi is. And in our synagogue, it's much more tame. I think that's a good word to use. When it was time for dinner, we finally went up and introduced ourselves to Rabbi Kaplan. He welcomed us to Chabad, he asked us a few questions, and expressed his gratitude for joining them for Shabbat dinner. We took our seats at one of the rows of tables, and we introduced ourselves to our neighbors. Some were from England, others from France, others from Israel, and I'm sure there were many other destinations, but we just didn't get to talk to most of the people, just to those sitting right around us. As I mentioned, there were tons of kids of all ages that got to play with my kids. Thankfully, many of them spoke enough English to play hide and seek and games of that sort with my kids, but definitely English was not the main language at this Chabad center. The rabbi started out by making a speech, a fairly long one, I must say, and he did that a few times throughout the evening. And all these speeches were in Hebrew. I could only catch a few words that I was familiar with, so I recounted the gist of the speech to my husband, which I thought had something to do with staying positive during politically tough times. Israel's war with Gaza is what's on everybody's minds right now. And also, I'm pretty sure he was trying to inspire us to keep practicing Judaism despite of rising anti-Semitism and things of that sort. Then he asked everyone to fill their cups with wine, and we were ready to say Kiddush. After this, it was time for hand washing, which did take a little while because there were only a couple of sinks and over 100 guests. So you can imagine everybody taking turns to wash their hands. But once everyone was back at the tables, it was time for challah. By this time, my kids were starving, so they devoured this delicious, freshly baked bread. And then as the evening progressed, we were served literally dozens of mouth-watering dishes to which there seemed to be no end. For the appetizer course, there were local Mexican waiters that were serving us throughout the evening, and they brought out varying salads. There was our favorite egg salad. There was baba ganoush, hummus, a variety of pickled vegetables and slaws. And then after that, a fish course followed. Then there was the soup. They brought out a huge pot of soup, and everybody could come up and take a plate, pour in the soup, and add on top of it my kids' favorite tiny little croutons that look like tiny yellow pillows. That's what they call them. And they sell them apparently everywhere because we have them at home as well. So my son, he actually had been waiting for soup for over a week at that point because he was already growing tired of the hotel food, of the resort food. And he was hoping for matzo ball soup because usually we have matzo ball soup for Shabbat, but they served chicken soup, which was also so good that he finished one bowl in no time and was asking for seconds. Then after the soup came the chicken course, and after that, the meat. Everything was served on beautiful plates. The presentation was just striking. Sometimes, like for example, for the meat, they used these wooden boards so you could cut the meat because they were big chunks of meat that they were bringing out. And so we were just blown away, honestly, by the amount of food, by the presentation, by the taste. Wow, so good, so delicious, and so beautiful. And then between each course, kid you not, between each course, the rabbi would get up in the middle of the room and make a toast. Again in Hebrew, so I didn't understand all of it. But the waiters came around each time with shots of either tequila or ouzo. And soon enough, everyone was joining the rabbi in Shabbat songs. Some songs we recognized, but others we did not. There was a paper prayer book on the table with prayers and Shabbat songs, but we found it a bit tricky to follow along. So again, we just sat back, relaxed, and enjoyed observing the party-like atmosphere of this Shabbat. Since we had started quite late and it was already almost 10 p.m., I want to say, my kids were getting sleepy and cranky. Unfortunately, we did not stay for dessert. I'm sure it was wonderful just as well, but I can't tell you about it. We were the first ones to leave, and I'm sure these shenanigans continued into the wee hours of the night. But we had to say goodbye. We went to thank the rabbi for, having hosted this beautiful dinner and prayer service. And then I made a small faux pas. I asked where the tzedakah was so we could donate some money, and the rabbi smilingly explained that no money transactions could be made on Shabbat. I was so embarrassed. Of course I knew this. I know you can't buy anything or sell anything or give money on Shabbat, but I completely forgot. It slipped my mind. And I think I turned red as we were saying goodbye. But then in a couple of days, we made sure to make a donation online to this Chabad for their hospitality and also to help them reach their goal of constructing a brand new, huge Chabad, which is to be named, I believe, the Jewel of the Caribbean. We saw during the Shabbat dinner, we saw a large poster on one of the walls showcasing the $7 million project, which I believe they're already halfway through collecting funds to make this happen. And this Chabad, let me tell you, it looks tremendous. I really hope that they're able to reach their campaign goal and build this beautiful, beautiful Chabad community center. And maybe one day we will travel there once it's built. I think it'll be super exciting. For now, we were very happy with the humble space that we visited because, after all, it's not about the space, right? It's about the people and the tradition. So next time you're in Mexico, stop by this Chabad. I highly recommend it. And it doesn't have to be for Shabbat. They have events all the time. They have prayer services. They have mikveh for men and women. They have classes. If you go to their website, you will see tons of photos of tourists learning how to put on tefillin. Some are getting married or just enjoying kosher food. And then for Havdalah, you'll see a Rabbi Kaplan playing guitar and singing. And if you know some Hebrew, it will be a big plus. But even if you don't, I guarantee you will still enjoy yourself. I've only been to 2 Chabads overseas so far, but I have a feeling this is going to be a travel tradition for my husband and me. God willing, we will be visiting a Chabad or 2 in Colombia come spring. So we'll see. I will be sure to report on that if we do reach that destination. Thank you so much for listening. And if you've been also to a unique or exotic Chabad location, please reach out to me. I would love to hear your experience and maybe share it also with the listeners. So thank you, and until next time.